Liberal Viewer presents.
So last week when North Korea disclosed to a visiting scientist its surprisingly sophisticated uranium enrichment facility to complement the plutonium North Korea reportedly used to construct atomic bombs during the Bush administration, the supposedly straight news people over on the Fox News program America's Newsroom broke the news and immediately began asking each other how they could spin this news as evidence of an error by the Obama administration, as you can see when supposedly straight news anchor Bill Hemmer questioned Fox News Pentagon reporter Jennifer Griffin in this clip.
Bill?
Historically, the administration has not always taken seriously this pursuit of a highly enriched uranium program. Is that still the case, Jennifer?
Now notice how Bill Hemmer's question had as its premise an unsupported value judgment about the Obama administration's seriousness on this issue, which was pretty clearly a scripted setup for Jennifer Griffin's response here.
Well, take, for example, the interview that my colleague James Rosen did with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton last year in February 2009. In it, she clearly downplayed the possibility that the North Koreans had a highly enriched uranium facility. Take a listen.
I don't have any doubt that they would try whatever they possibly could. Have they? I don't know that, and nobody else does either.
Now, it turns out if you check the Fox News website, you'll find a longer version of that clip broadcast back in 2009 in which Secretary Clinton made clear her problems were with missing details about North Korea's uranium enrichment program, not with the Obama administration taking the program seriously. But it also turns out even that 2009 clip was dishonestly taken out of context to fit the Fox News narrative, as I'll explain after you watch it. But be sure to look for the use of cuts to shots of the interviewer James Rosen to hide the splicing together of clips beginning with the splice you can see here.
Clearly, there was some reason to believe that something having to do with highly enriched uranium, whether it was happening in North Korea, whether it had been imported into North Korea, was part of the information derived once we got inspectors into North Korea. But no one can point to any specific location, nor can they point to any specific outcome of whatever might have gone on, if anything did.
So that additional context from 2009 weakens Fox News' premise last week that the Obama administration didn't take North Korean uranium enrichment seriously, but if you track down the actual transcript of that interview, it gets even worse, because it turns out that each shot of interviewer James Rosen in that clip hid splices between 3 different comments, all of which were edited together to remove Secretary Clinton's criticism of the Bush administration's failure to stop the North Korean plutonium reprocessing that actually led to North Korea getting nuclear weapons. And you can see that dishonest editing yourself by comparing the clips at tinyurl.com/HillaryClips with the transcript at tinyurl.com/HillaryTranscript. But that would be a whole other video, which would be last year's Fox News bias, while last week's Fox News bias added a whole new layer, this time amazingly trying to rehabilitate one of the biggest failures of the Bush administration, the supposed slam-dunk proof that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction that included information about the use of aluminum tubes that Fox News tried to resurrect, and the final piece of misinformation Fox News used to attack the Obama administration in the end of that story last week here.
And yet, Bill, Christopher Hill, who was the special envoy to North Korea, had 1 year before testified to Congress that, in fact, they'd found some aluminum tubes that had been bought from Germany, and those aluminum tubes are only used in the enrichment of uranium. So it's hard to imagine that Secretary Clinton didn't know about this enrichment.
Now, the reference to what Christopher Hill said about North Korean aluminum tubes is doubly dishonest there. First, because the former ambassador never claimed those tubes were only usable for uranium enrichment, just that they could be used for that purpose, as you can see, for example, in Christopher Hill's February 2007 remarks to the Brookings Institute about those aluminum tubes here.
We have some indications that they were successful in getting some of these tubes elsewhere. And by the way, these are tubes that we know have they fit the type of Pakistani designed centrifuges that we know they have also, we know from Pakistani sources that they have also procured. So at some point we need to see what's happened to this equipment. If the tubes did not go into a highly enriched uranium program, maybe they went somewhere else.
So Christopher Hill clearly said the tubes had other uses, since that's the truth, and it's a truth the Bush administration found out the hard way, because as some actual journalists reported the week after Christopher Hill's speech there, These were the same aluminum tubes that Secretary of State Colin Powell used in his famous speech to the United Nations to justify the invasion of Iraq, but the claim those aluminum tubes were evidence of an Iraqi nuclear weapons program was later discredited. Discredited everywhere it seems but on Fox News, where last week's story seemed to be less about North Korea's uranium enrichment facility and more about trying to dishonestly shift the blame for North Korea's nuclear program from a Republican to a Democratic president, even though North Korea most likely went nuclear in 2006 during the Bush administration. At least that's what I think, but I want to know what you think. Was that Fox News story I showed mainly about North Korea's uranium enrichment facility, or mainly about dishonestly shifting blame for North Korea's nuclear program from a Republican to a Democratic president? And on the bigger question of the worsening situation on the Korean Peninsula, what should the United States, Russia, Japan, South Korea, and especially China do to pacify North Korea?
I YouTube, you decide.